Good evening, everyone. My name's John Matheson, and I want to welcome you all to this meeting in the Town of Essex of the Windsor-Essex Regional Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Community Engagement Session. We'll just begin, as is our custom, though we're meeting virtually, we still do so in a manner that pays respect to the land acknowledgement. So, as is our custom, I'll just indicate that today we meet on the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, which includes the Ojibwa, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi. And we respect the longstanding relationships with First Nations people in this place, in the 100-mile Windsor-Essex Peninsula and the Straits, Les Détroits of Detroit. So we'll just begin with a quick video that's from the project leads, and they'll provide you with a quick welcome, and then we'll roll on with a few other matters. So if you want to roll the video, please.
Hello. On behalf of all of us at the Windsor-Essex Regional Community Safety and Wellbeing Systems Leadership Table, we want to thank you for your interest in the development of our region's first ever Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Together, our goal is to build a community where everyone feels safe, has a sense of belonging, has access to services and opportunities, and can have their needs met across the region.
We want to hear from you. We want to understand what your priorities and concerns are for the safety and well-being of our community so that we can create a plan to advance the interests of all residents across Windsor and the County of Essex. So please make your voice heard by participating in our online survey,
or by registering for one of the virtual public meetings happening in each of the region's 8 municipalities. To get involved, visit us online at CSWBWindsorEssex.ca. And thank you from all of us.
Well, and thank you from us too. And there's just a few housekeeping matters to just remind everybody of. I know we're a year into this almost exactly, so in many respects, this is becoming quite familiar. But do please remember to keep your line muted unless you're speaking. And to do that, you can either use the mute button on your phone or the mute function that you'll find at the bottom left of your screen. We'll be your partners in keeping you muted because we have to sort of preserve the quality of the sound for all the other participants. But don't worry, because while we might be quick to mute you if you've got a dog barking in the background or something, we certainly won't do it while you're speaking, and we'll be just as quick to unmute you when your time comes to talk. So we'll just try and make sure that everybody can hear properly. This evening's session is quite interactive. And we're going to be breaking out into as many breakout groups as we need to keep the numbers nice and small and manageable. So it's not going to be necessary to be particularly formal where it comes to signifying your intention to speak. But there is a function that you see, the graphic on the right-hand side of the page. There's a chat function that you can use to put comments in, and that's really useful if you want to add something but don't want to disrupt the flow of the conversation. You can also press the little raise hand function that signifies that you want to speak. But honestly, this works really well too. And oftentimes, whoever's speaking is trying to manage the slides as well as see what's going on. So really, anything that gets our attention works. And when we're in the small groups, there's absolutely no need to stand on any great ceremony, because if there's only 3 or 4 of us, it'll feel pretty much like we were just sitting around the kitchen table. So I hope it creates a very friendly and pleasant opportunity in which to share the thoughts that you have on community safety and well-being. I should also say this is about community safety and well-being, so not surprisingly, our team does reserve the right to monitor the discussion and delete any comments or remove any participants who are making inappropriate comments. But as I say every time, we understand full well that anybody who's given their time to come and participate in this contribution of making the community better certainly doesn't intend that, and we've not had any problems of that kind, and I say it just as a matter of record only, and we're absolutely looking forward to hearing your participation tonight. I should also just add, it's obviously very pleasant to be able to see people. We're all missing human contact, and it's awfully nice to be able to not just hear your voices, but be able to see the tone that you convey by being present with your camera on. But that is absolutely your choice. And if for whatever reason you're not comfortable with having your camera on, then by all means, it's not a requirement. But it's welcome if it's convenient for you. And I'll just leave it at that. Finally, we do have closed captioning services tonight. And if you need those services, you can enable them at the bottom of your screen. If you have any technical issues, you can use the chat to send a private message. You'll see that one of the screens is labeled CSWB Windsor. Lurking behind that title is Leslie Rive, and she is our technical wizard, and she will be here to solve any of your issues if in fact you have any. But it's a pretty stable platform, and we haven't been having a lot of trouble with it. So all in all, I think we should have a very smooth session given the number of people we have to be able to hear your comments. And I will just then jump onto the next slide if possible, which gives you a sense of the agenda. We are almost complete with the welcome and introductions. And so in a moment, there'll be an overview of the process for the creation of a community safety and well-being plan. And I'll introduce that in just a moment. But as soon as we're through that, and we usually plan to be done before the turn of the hour, so probably 5 minutes to 7 or so, we'll roll into breakout sessions, and that'll occupy us for the better part of 45 minutes or so. And that'll be your chance to provide your direct feedback into the process and answer a series of questions that have been designed to basically just get your open-ended opinion on community safety and well-being in your community. And then, as we would if we were in a big old church basement or something like that doing a community meeting, we'll have a report back and group discussion at the end where you can hear what the other group said and add anything that you think has either occurred to you since or anything you think we might have missed. So that's basically the outline of the process for this evening. I can just provide you with a quick set of introductions of who's here from the staff team. Notwithstanding the extraordinary variance between the photograph and what you see before you, yes, that is me. I'm John Matheson. I'm the partner from Strategy Corp, and I have clearly been in full compliance of all orders which have prevented me from going to see a barber anytime recently. I'm here with my colleague, Olivia Lahi, who has been working on the project with me for some time. From the Essex and Windsor side, I already mentioned Leslie Rive, who is our tech support person. We have Michelle Sushu from Workforce Windsor-Essex, and she's here tonight. And then I should also introduce Leo Gill. Leo is the project manager. He's been working kind of tirelessly on this project for the better part of a year and has really been the brains behind a lot of the operations so far. And so it's entirely appropriate that you should hear from him as he answers some of the questions about what is a community safety plan and what does the process look like. So Leo, over to you.
Thank you, John. And welcome everyone for today's session. We really do appreciate your time and for being here tonight. So to start off, I tend to like to answer a question that many people have. What is community safety and well-being planning? And truly, this CSWB planning is about creating a collaborative approach to service delivery, one that involves multiple sectors and community partners, and is focused on being proactive and preventative, all for the goal of addressing local priorities related to complex social issues and crime. And to do this, municipal and regional leaders are working together with partners across several different fields with the goal of creating a community where everyone feels safe, has a sense of belonging, has access to services and opportunities, and can have their needs met. Why this is important in terms of the goals that we were just discussing, as well as the approach itself, is that it recognizes that there are factors that influence our feelings of safety and well-being that go beyond whether a crime has occurred. It can be stigma, discrimination, even a lack of access to resources. And the approach also recognizes that for every risk, there's a community strength and asset, and that those should be our building blocks. Finally, that everyone has a role to play in improving our community safety and well-being. And so why are we undertaking this project now? Well, over the past 2 decades, provincial data and research focusing on how to address some of today's complex social issues have really highlighted the importance of prevention, like crime prevention, also strengthening communities and involving different sectors in developing solutions to challenges that our communities may be facing. And based on this research, in 2018, the provincial government passed legislation that required all municipalities to adopt and prepare a CSWB plan. Beyond the fact that it was legislated, there's a lot of great real local benefits to these types of plans, which I'll discuss in just a few minutes. Next slide, please. So just so that we can wrap our heads around this a little bit, really the CSWB plan has a framework that we can utilize. And really it's about intervening in 4 different areas of intervention. At the top there is social development, that green layer. We can intervene at prevention, risk intervention, and also incident response, which is the center of that bullseye or those concentric circles. And commonly when we think of safety interventions, we tend to focus on the center of the bullseye at the incident itself. And tend to approach it from an emergency services perspective or a policing perspective. But research is showing that first responders are being called to situations related to well-being that are symptoms of larger issues like a mental health crisis or housing insecurity. And these issues are ones that first responders can't solve alone. It needs to be partnerships in terms of being able to tackle some of those issues. If we move up a layer to the risk intervention layer, this is really about reducing harm before it gets to the point of an incident. And this type of work is not usually about creating community-wide strategies, and instead is focused on providing wraparound type services to particular individuals in need. The next layer, however, prevention, it really is about involving as many people as possible, and it's about proactively identifying and addressing local risks before they escalate. And in that effort, all community members, groups, and sectors really have a role to play at this level. And then finally, at the top layer, social development is usually involving longer-term investments or strategies to improve larger scale issues like access to income, education, or quality housing, to name a few. Work in this layer usually involves us looking beyond the incident at the social causes and understanding that those causes need integrated and collective responses. So to pull all of these concepts together, if instead of starting at the incident, we started at the social development layer at the top, then we can work towards building on protective factors and strengths, emphasize prevention and risk mitigation strategies through things like use of data, and ultimately work to reduce the number of incidents we need to respond to by intervening before challenges become crises. Next slide, please. So now that we have a bit of background on the project, just want to quickly jump into our approach here. And the plan is being developed in a joint city-county approach. So while it is being developed through this regional collaboration, the plan will include specific appendices and data profiles for each municipality. And the intent here is to ensure that those local priorities and strengths in each municipality are identified. So guiding plan development are 2 great teams here, the Regional Systems Leadership Table, as well as the Enhanced Sector Network. And the Systems Leadership Table is made up of leaders from across those multiple different sectors like health and mental health, education, community and social services, law enforcement, to name a few. And they're uniquely positioned to help us have a better understanding of what can be done within those sectors and across sectors. And then the Enhanced Sector Network consists of frontline staff and members from community organizations and committees that work alongside 8 historically underrepresented groups. And these groups or these communities include First Nations and Indigenous peoples, racialized persons, newcomers, youth, seniors, 2S LGBTQ+ folk, accessibility communities, and broader community groups that tend to be working alongside those with lived experience of homelessness or those with lived experience of substance use. And working collaboratively on this, it's really about narrowing down the focus, narrowing down the scope of some of the challenges that we are going to want to focus on first and develop strategies for. And overall, the objectives of that is really to identify priority risk factors, identify strategies to reduce those risk factors, and then set measurable outcomes to make sure that we know how we can track our progress in achieving those goals. Next slide. So ultimately, these plans are really aiming to take advantage of existing community strengths, resources, and best practices to create proactive approaches to identified local risks. And there's a number of different benefits that this kind of this type of plan supports within the community. Some of which are listed on the screen here. And it's really about enhancing communication and collaboration among different agencies and organizations. And through that increased communication, there tends to be an increased awareness, coordination, and access for services for community members and vulnerable groups. And also, it tends to allow us to ensure services are provided to individuals with complex needs. Next slide. So as with many things, there was a bit of a delay or a bit of a pause due to COVID-19. And after that pause, we really relaunched in June 2020. And since that relaunch, we've been able to develop a current state data report, as well as an interactive asset map, both of which will be made public in the coming weeks. And we were able to complete presentations informing elected officials from each municipal council about the project to provide them with updates on that. Also, through our enhanced sector network, we were able to engage 96 frontline staff and representatives from existing committees and organizations. And through that, they've been able to help us with contextualizing that current state data report, so contextualizing some of that data, as well as they're going to be involved with prioritizing community risk factors. Once we've been able to complete all of the public consultation and analyze the data, we'll be able to then develop the final report and submit it to municipal and county councils for adoption. And we expect the plan to be fully completed and made public by the end of the year. Next slide. And so with that, if you have any questions about the process, or if you have any questions about the project, please let me know, and I'm more than welcome to answer them.
No questions so far, Leo.
Okay, great. If there's no questions, if, say, for instance, you think of a question later on, feel free to ask us during the breakout groups, or ask me during the regroup session. But for now, I'll pass it over to Olivia, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the data for Essex.
Great, thanks, Leo. So as Leo mentioned, as an earlier data report, using a lot of data from well-being areas of potential improvement. The types of data that we looked at included municipal and financial services, police service data on crime, data, and prevention, for example.
Hang on, Olivia, your sound is coming in and out, and it seemed like it was about to get better once or twice, and then it got worse again. I'm assuming it's not me who's the only one who's having the problem, right? Are there other people having the issue? Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds all right.
That's better now.
All right. Well, I'll keep going. If not, you might just need to take over.
Yeah, it's good now.
All right. That's good, because I think I've run out of headset options in my home as of right now. But yeah. So the point of the report was to assess safety and well-being in the communities today and find future areas of improvement to a lot of different data sets. And we categorized that data into a number of factors that impact safety and well-being in our communities, that reflect not only incidents of crime, but also the underlying causes of illegal behavior. And so for those who might not have video, they are crime and victimization, education, financial security, mental health and substance abuse, physical health, housing and neighborhoods, and COVID-19, acknowledging that COVID is its own category, but also it has directly impacted every other category there. So we'll just go to the next slide. So we do have municipal profiles for each municipality across the region. Worth noting is that it's a census year, which means that we are using data from the 2016 census, as the 2020 census data is not available yet. So it's important to take this information with a grain of salt, and we also do that when looking at the data. It's a useful tool, but it's not the only tool that we need to look at. And a large part of having consultations like this one is, as Leo said, to provide context to the data that we've received. So just something to keep in mind, that this is one perspective by the numbers, so to say, but certainly not the only thing we look at when we talk about building out the municipal profiles for the community safety and well-being plan. So next slide, please. So for the Town of Essex, we're looking at an area with a rich agricultural and a couple distinct urban centers, so a bit of a mixed community. But in general, the town heights and significantly less severe crime than the rest of the region. However, it also has more adults with only a high school diploma, fewer adults with a post-secondary degree compared to regional averages. But generally people in the town have a high medium household income, and child poverty is below regional averages as well. A small of more residents of the town spend a smaller amount of their income than people in other parts of the region do. More residents own their homes in the town of Essex than regional averages. And it's worth noting that affordable housing has been prioritized in the town of Essex's strategic plan. Below at the bottom of the slide, we have a couple from the towns we pulled out. The plan focus on strengths and development of the community. The list we have here below is certainly not all inclusive, but we've pulled out a couple of the strategies specifically relate to community safety and well-being, and that includes attracting viable growth to the area, investing in infrastructure and mitigating the impact of climate change on the community, supporting vibrant recreation options, particularly youth, and reviewing the current policing strategy. So with that as one perspective on the town of Essex, we now turn it over to you guys and want to hear a bit more from you guys. So if we go to the next slide, we will discuss how we want to do the breakout rooms. Do we know how many, what the differential between staff or people who are with the town and residents is looking like?
Yeah, it looks like we have, is it 8 outside guests? So we could probably move to 2 groups. And Olivia, given the sound problems you're having, Leo, was it possible for you to take one of them and I'll take the other?
Sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault. It's obviously a battery situation or something, so don't worry about it. So what we can do is we can proceed on that basis, and we can ask Lindsay to divide us up. And so, as I said before, we can be pretty informal in the groups, so you don't have to worry too much about that. I'm sure we'll be able to manage the conversation in a way that's pretty comfortable without being very formal. We'll go for give or take 40 minutes or so, and then come back to have a group discussion. And all you have to do is you'll see a little box pop up on your screen in a moment that'll say go to breakout room, and you'll just press OK when it comes up on your screen.